Hey there everyone, what's up? Back today with the continuation of the Q&A video, and today I'm just going to continue where I left off and go until the battery starts to die, I guess. That's about it. I don't really have a plan for this, but again, I got a lot of questions on the last one too, but if you have any more questions, feel free to leave them below. I'll add them to the end of the list, and eventually we'll get there. But yeah, so I guess we're continuing. First question in the second part here is from Dan Tenshi Reinhardt, who asks, "Do you think I'm pretty?" And I think, no, sorry. Maybe if you put a big bow on your head, that would work. It works for Miss Pac-Man, right? I don't know. That's a joke question, though. That's his joke question. So he does ask, what are your hobbies outside of gaming? And I don't have a lot of hobbies outside of gaming. I do things outside of gaming, but not so much hobbies. Like, I watch movies, read books. I go out, hang out with friends. I do a bit of art. I actually have 2 college degrees in various art fields, and so sometimes I paint, but it's actually I do it a lot less in Japan than I did in the U.S. only because in the U.S. I had studio space that I could go to and paint, and here if I want to paint I have to like put down mats and do a bunch of preparation, and it's just like, when I think about, oh, I kind of want to paint, but then I also think, oh, I don't want to lay all the stuff and do all the preparation and then have to clean it up later, so maybe I'm not going to paint after all. That kind of stuff happens. I used to do woodblock printing also, but the same reason that I don't do it that much here. It's just too much preparation now. And, I still actually do a bit of sculpting, but most of that stuff just turns into masks, so I have a bunch of pictures of that stuff. I'm too lazy to edit them into the video or anything, but I have them. So that's about it. I don't do a ton of stuff. I'm like pretty busy with work, and then when I get home from work, I just kind of want to play games or read or watch a movie or something. So that's about it for the weekdays, I guess. On the weekends, I tend to do a bit more, but stuff that isn't like a hobby, I guess. I don't collect anything else, and I don't get really into anything else like it's a hobby. So sorry, it's not really a good answer. I mean, it's an answer. It's a good answer. It's not really an interesting one though. But thanks for the question. Next person, we've got Crushing On, and I don't know if he makes videos. Okay, I should say this too. If I don't mention that you make videos, I don't know that you make videos. That's pretty much it for these questions. If you do make videos and you've left a comment on here, tell me, because I'll actually check out your channel and stuff. But right now, like, if you just leave comments, I almost never check anybody's channels because I get a lot of comments, and I'm lazy. But if you do have videos on your channel and you're commenting on my videos, I'm probably apt to want to watch your stuff because we're having some kind of interaction. But anyway, totally unrelated to the question from Crushing On, who is a good commenter. Is why I mentioned that. I would say go check out his channel, but I don't know if he makes videos. But if he does, check out his channel. I should check it out too, though. Anyway, yes, your favorite manga or anime. This is hard for me. It's not that hard for me because I don't read a lot of manga and I don't watch a lot of anime. But right next to me here is a bookshelf with all the manga and that I have anything to but I guess my favorite would be this right here. This is Uzumaki. It's Ito Junji is the writer of this manga, and he's probably my favorite manga artist. I only read like horror manga essentially, except for a few cases where I read some other stuff. But speaking of that, my favorite anime is also from a manga. This manga in particular, Detroit Metal City. The anime is, it's like the only anime I've watched in the past like 10 years. So it's by default my favorite only because it's the only one I've ever seen. But besides that, it's actually really funny and it's really interesting, and I really like the story. It's the same as the manga pretty much though, so it's not like you're really missing anything if you don't watch it. But it's fun. Everybody I've shown it to really likes it too, so you should check that out. But I'm a bad person to ask about that kind of stuff because I really am not thinking about it. If you guys have any horror manga that aren't either Ito Junji or your standard stuff like who is that? What's his face? I'm trying to. I'm gonna show you because I have this figure from him. This fellow, you know who he is. I'm trying to think of what his name is. It's Kazuo something. Oh, what is? See, the reading for his kanji name is weird. And Umezu, that's what it is. It's Umezu Kazuo. So, if anything besides that you could recommend, I'll probably check it out because I like horror, but I don't really watch anime or read manga all that much, so I don't really have that much to talk about. But next question from Crushing On is your favorite Ys game, if you like that series. I'm not like a huge Ys fan. I haven't played that many in the series actually. I've only played 1, 2, and 3. So, and I actually had those when I was a kid. So I had a TurboGrafx and the CD add-on, which was, I was the only person I knew had the system actually. So it wasn't really popular or anything, but I did have that game, and it was like one of the games you pulled out to be like, you think your Super Nintendo or Genesis is awesome? Check out this, and you have like full motion animation and stuff in the game, and it always blows people away, especially in like 1991 or whatever when it came out. But yeah, for me, it's probably Ys Book 1 and 2 on the TurboGrafx 16, only because that's the game I played the most in the series. I played 3, and I might have played 4. I don't even remember, but I don't think I did. I think 1, 2, and 3 is all I played. So I'll just go with that. I haven't played any of the new ones, and I feel like I don't want to really play more of them because I don't want to play the whole series, and I feel like it's kind of almost necessary when you're playing it. I mean, I guess it's not really, but I don't know. It's just like another series that I know is kind of good, but I don't really want to get into it for whatever reason. I don't really have a good reason. I just don't particularly feel like playing Ys. That's about it. Let's see. Have you ever dumped more than 500 hours in a single game? It's hard to do that I find it hard to spend that much time. I mean, I've spent a couple hundred hours in some games, but 500, man. Maybe I spent that much time in World of Warcraft, but I don't even think I spent that much time playing that. I don't think there was enough time that I actually played the game to reach 500 hours. I don't know. I don't know. I played Lineage before I played World of Warcraft, so I might have put 500 hours into that. But I don't even think I did. So probably no. I mean, I put a couple like 300 or 350 or so into some games, but 500, that's probably over my limit. I just get tired of it after a while. Let's see. Orecon asks, so again, Crushing On, thanks for questions. Orecon asks, I'm going to translate his question so everybody can understand. He asked me essentially how good is your Japanese and how did you learn? Well, my Japanese is, well, I'm a translator. I work in a Japanese company. I use Japanese in my daily life much more than I use English. And in my opinion, my spoken Japanese isn't even really that great. I don't feel that it's that great, only because it's the thing I use the least. You know, I actually would say that my spoken Japanese is my worst aspect of my Japanese, only because I spend all day reading Japanese. And, you know, I hear people talk to me all the time in Japanese, so I'm really good at understanding and reading, but, and writing also. I'm really good at writing in Japanese, but speaking, it's not to say that I'm bad at speaking. Obviously, I do videos in Japanese, but it's still my weakest point. It's like one of the reasons I wanted to do videos in Japanese in the first place was just to get more, you know, on the spot practice for Japanese. But I don't really know how to answer that more than that. You know, I've lived in Japan for 9 years. It'd be pretty. You'd have to be like one of those people who live in a bubble of only English speakers and never study at all to like not be relatively fluent by that amount of time. So yeah, I'm pretty much fluent in Japanese. And so how did I study? I went to Japanese school for 2 years. It was, you know, essentially 2 years. It was a little less than that. But Japanese school was, you know, 5 hours a day for. It wasn't 5 hours. It was more like 3.5 hours a day, 5 days a week. But I actually, the class itself was about 3.5 hours, and then I had special classes for just me afterwards because it was at my Japanese school. I was apparently the only person, the only American person who ever got to the highest level in this school. They never had anybody go past the middle level. And a lot of the reason for that is just because it's hard for people who have no background in kanji to get there as quickly as everybody else. So what they did for me was that because I was at a pretty good pace, they gave me a special like man-to-man kanji class for an extra like half an hour or 45 minutes or so after the normal class. So I had like intensive kanji training after my normal class with regular kanji training. But so I had to get, you know, they had to catch me up essentially to the Chinese kids, which the class was 90% Chinese kids, and then like one Korean girl and me. That was it. That was my entire Japanese class for about 2 years. So that was it. And, you know, outside of class, I studied. Obviously, I studied every day. But I did things like watch movies, rented movies all the time in Japanese, played games. And I started really early playing games. So, like, before I could read kanji altogether, I started playing games on the Famicom. And the Famicom doesn't have kanji in any of the games because the Famicom can't actually display the kanji characters. So it's the kind of thing where, like, unless it's an image, it's not going to be kanji in the normal text. So I was playing RPGs and kind of reading them. You know, I could read them relatively quickly with no kanji, but you know, getting the meaning was something different. So I did a lot of study through RPGs, I guess. And as I got better, I kind of went up through the generations. So I started like, oh, okay, I'm better at Famicom games. I can go to Super Famicom games that have kanji with furigana. And then like later on, like once you get to PlayStation 1, that's all gone. There's no furigana anymore, so you can't like, you just have to kind of be able to know it or not. So it was kind of like a gradation through gaming, which helped me study reading and kanji a bit, at least practicing. And then I read some manga. I like read Fist of the North Star for for like a bunch of time, and then I read like a bunch of horror stuff, Tomie and Lemina and stuff like that. But yeah, that was pretty much all I did: watch movies, play games, and read manga a bit. I read actually in place of manga, mostly I read. I mean, I did read a bunch, but I read, like, Roald Dahl books translated to Japanese, like books I kind of knew the story of already that are more, like, younger audience focused, and I just read those because I knew the story already, so I could tell if I was reading it and getting it or not. So that kind of helped. But yeah, that's about all I did. And then plus like daily living in a country where nobody speaks English. So it's the kind of thing where, you know, you're kind of thrown into the deep end there. You just have to use Japanese or you can't function. So that's pretty much how I studied. So yeah, thanks for the question. Next we've got Sega 94486 asks, what got you into the Megami Tensei series, and what was the first one you played, and what is your favorite game in the series? That's three questions in one. But all right. What got me into Megami Tensei? I was the person who introduced me to that series is actually this girl I was dating, and she's like she's like a fetish model or something. So you know, she is a model for like corsets and thigh-high leather boots and stuff like that. So she's like kind of Japanese gothic chick who is a fetish model, and we were dating, and she plays games, and one of the games she recommended I should check out is Shin Megami Tensei. So I picked up Shin Megami Tensei on the Super Famicom, and I played that, and I really liked it. So I just continued playing the series, and from there I just kept playing and playing and playing, and I'm just like was totally hooked on the series. So that's pretty much it. That was how I got into the series. So what is the first one I played? Megami Tensei, Shin Megami Tensei, and the favorite in the series is probably that one. The reason I like the first game in the series so much, it's not the one with the best system or anything, but it does have a really, I like the way it starts. You know, all the other games past the first one start off in like a post-apocalyptic Tokyo already, like everything is already destroyed. But in the first game, it starts out in the middle of the kind of apocalypse. So like, you know, you start out as you're this normal guy in town, and you're kind of hanging out, and then all of a sudden, you know, shit gets real. That's like pretty much what happens. Like, you know, like all of a sudden there's like news reports of demons attacking people, and you're just like, I think that story is really a good one. I wish they would. I don't want them to remake it, but I want like a similar kind of thing to happen. That's like one of the cool things about the Shin Megami Tensei role-playing game, the pen and paper one, is that you can kind of make an infinite amount of stories in that same kind of, I don't know, area, that kind of time period in the series. Whereas the first game is pretty much the only one that's in that one. I guess the first Devil Summoner game is also similar to that, in like you're kind of in a normal town, and then suddenly demons are appearing all over the place, and parts of the town start to get shutting down. But it's not as epic of a story, I guess. But yeah, that's about it. So, thanks for the question. Next person. Pirathapan Kumalanathan. I'm sorry if I just screwed up your name. But I wasn't even remotely ready to pronounce that. But first question, what makes your decision to pick between all the games you want to play? Okay, so how do I decide what games I want to play, essentially? I mostly read about games beforehand. So I just read about the concept of a game or the look of a game, and if something kind of catches my eye, I, you know, research it a bit. So when they announce new games, you know, I look at all the announcements, and then I see, like, does this concept sound cool to me? Does this look cool to me? Does this look like it's going to be a fun game? And if so, I put it on a list. That's essentially it. And I do that with retro games too. So I find a lot of retro games and play them in the same way. So, you know, I search around for games, or like, I'm interested in this kind of concept for a game. Is there a game? And I'll search for it. And if I find something, like, you know, for example, if I'm like, oh, I'm really looking for a cyberpunk game, you know, are there any on the Sega Saturn? So I'll search for it and find, like, oh, here's these weird Japanese cyberpunk games that I never heard of on the Sega Saturn. I should buy those. And then I look around, and you'll find, like, oh, there's some on the Sega CD. Oh, here's some Super Famicom games. You know, like, that kind of thing. I just search randomly and find stuff like that. And I like concepts and game styles. So that's essentially what I search for. There's not a lot of the time, sometimes developers and like who wrote the story and stuff plays a part, but for the most part I'm just like interested in the concept and if it seems like it's going to be fun or interesting to play. And if I think it is, I'll probably pick it up and try it. That's essentially the basics of how I pick games to play. So let's see, next question. How do you deal with games you know you won't have time for? If I know, I don't know that I'm not going to have time for any games. I have a bit of a backlog, but it's only, I think my backlog grows and shrinks, as I buy games, obviously, but sometimes there'll be like ridiculous sales and I buy a ton of stuff at the same time. So I'll buy like 20 games and of course like I can't play them all right away, but that's what the backlog is for. I have the backlog because eventually there's not gonna be a sale and I'm not gonna be like have a ton of games that I want to buy. So I'll just play the backlog games. And having said that, I think there is not going to be a time where I feel like I don't have time to play this game. I don't know what to do with it. I think, hell, I'll just wait till I'm 80 and I don't have a job. I'll just play it then. It's not like I'm going to run out of time. The only time I'm going to run out of time to play games is when I'm dead, and then at that point it doesn't really matter. So that's all I can think of. I mean, I don't generally if I'm not going to buy a game if I don't think I'm going to play it. And if I don't like have time to play it right away, I'll just play it at some other time. I mean, eventually I have vacation time. I have time off from work. I can play everything eventually. Maybe not right away, but I'll get to it. I'll get to it at some point. I bought it for a reason, so I will play eventually everything. So that's how I deal with it. I play them, I guess. So last question, how did you learn such good Japanese and what are your training methods? I guess I just answered that. I went to school and then I live in Japan and I did all that stuff. So I guess I kind of answered that already. So I'm not going to do it again. So thanks for the questions, and we'll move to the next person, who is Dragard Chaos, I guess. I'm going to say it that way. Have you watched the Devil Summoner TV drama? Nope. No, I haven't. I see those things at the video store. Like they have the Devil Summoner stuff, and there's also like a Shin Megami Tensei anime and a the Persona animes and stuff. But I'm not getting into that stuff. I'm not watching it. I don't care. It's not like canon to the series or anything. It's just kind of extra side stories in the universe or whatever. I don't care about that. It's not super important to me to hear the stories. If it's a game where I have to like think about how to play it, then I'll be into it. But I don't really care about the animes, I guess. I mean, I might even watch them at some point, but I'm not like gonna rush out and get them at any point. I guess like if I found them out, if they were on sale at the shop I usually buy stuff and they're like 50 yen a DVD, I'd totally pick them up and be like, well, I got them, I'll totally get them, totally watch them now. But yeah, I don't, in all honesty, this TV isn't hooked up to anything. It's only hooked up to game systems. It can't even receive TV channels, so I don't watch TV at all. I mean, the antenna switch is like in an entirely different room. I'd have to like get wires like all up through this room into the back of the TV. I'm not doing that. I don't even care. So no TV for me, and no, I guess, TV, anime, or whatever for me. So thanks for the question. Next person, we've got Pokemon God Arceus. I don't know how I should say that, but that's check out his channel and hope that he subscribes to you, because he's like one of the most prolific commenters on stuff. Like, and he not that he comments a lot, he does comment a lot, but he comments a lot of stuff. So like it's always nice to get a comment from him, because it's like it's full of content of stuff, and it's kind of sometimes it's kind of like stream of consciousness, but it's still interesting, and like he's always good to have around. So I'm glad. His name is Josh, by the way. He good guy. But he asks, Since you haven't made a snack tasting video, have you tried any new snacks off camera that I don't know about? I probably have, but you know, I actually was gonna make snack tasting videos. I have stuff like to try. I just haven't had time to like really sit down and make the videos. I have things within arm's reach that I could totally try right now. I've got Mountain Dew corn snacks. That's gonna be vile though, so I don't have a drink. But I do have another thing that I will have to reach over here to get. But I will get it. Here is these are Ninja snacks, Ninja food, and if you can see this, there's like a little business ninja on there. And I actually sent these to my friends in the U.S. I'd never tried it myself, but I sent a big box of snacks to my friends in the U.S. And out of all of the snacks I sent, this was apparently the most horrifying thing that they had. It was apparently awful beyond belief. They said it was painful to eat, literally hurt their mouth to eat. So what I'm gonna do is, because he asked about it, I'm gonna try these. I'm gonna try these right now in the video, and they're probably gonna be awful. I'm gonna grab a drink. So hold on a second. But all right, we got some Wilkinson's lemon carbonated water here. It has no flavor. It's essentially carbonated water. So even if these are bad, it's probably not going to be all that special. But these are apparently awful beyond awful. So I'm expecting horror. But you can see it's just this little tab here. Apparently they're super sour to the point of pain. And the taste is bad also. So here we go. It's hard. It's not awful. It's not horrifying. It hasn't like hurt my mouth like they were claiming. I mean, it's not good. It tastes like ume soap or something. It's it's not really good, but it's not as bad as they made it out to be. I got an email yesterday, like from those guys, like saying, "Fuck that business ninja." Like it was like a month ago, and they're still sending me emails about how bad it is. I'm gonna send them more. Screw those guys. But yeah, I got some other stuff. I got Pepsi corn snacks too, and apparently they're carbonated corn snacks. I'll actually do a video for those. That kind of stuff is pretty horrifying. But there's a lot of good stuff that I get. I just get the weirdest stuff I can find for the snack tasting videos because it's most entertaining. These weren't horrible. I'd never eat them again. I'm not gonna eat the rest of this pack, but it's just kind of like sour, soapy tasting. But it's not like I want to spit it out or anything. So alright, thanks for the question. And next we've got Knick-Knack. Knick-Knack is always good for asking questions. He always asks questions on with the Press Start podcast, I noticed. So like he's always asking all these weird questions, but I don't think he asked anything crazy this time, so that's good. But here's Knick-Knack's question number 1. Who are some of your favorite voice actors in games, both American and Japanese, if you know any? You know, I don't really keep track of voice actors in games. Like, I don't think I honestly don't. The only person I can think of that I like as a voice actor is Yamadera Koichi, who does the voice for Akiyama in the Yakuza games. And he also did the voice for what's his face in Catherine. Oh man, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. You guys know who I'm talking about. The main guy from Catherine. What is his name? Oh, Vincent. That's what it is. Catherine is right there. So he does Vincent's voice in the Japanese version of Catherine. But I really like his voice, and I like the way he talks. So it's fun to listen to him. So that's about it. I can't think of anybody else though. But that guy is super famous, by the way. He he does voiceovers for everything in Japan. If you look at his like list of stuff, it's like this ridiculous list. And he does like, you know, voices for anime and voices for like voiceovers in movies and voices for games, voices for everything. So I guess he's apparently super famous. But he's really good, so I mean, I guess it makes sense. Okay, so number 2. If you had a persona, what creature in mythos historical figure historical figure would it be based off? I don't know, man. I think like a lot of the personas in the game are, you know, they're all based off of some religion, but I'd want to do something that isn't in the game yet. I would make a Cthulhu mythos persona that isn't. I guess that isn't in the game because there are some already, like Nyarlathotep and like Cthulhu is in one of the games. I think he's actually in Dark and Devil Summoner. I don't remember, but it'd have to be something else. I don't know. Dagon, the fish god. I hate fish so much though, so it's a kind of a bad choice. I don't know, man. That's rough. In all honesty, like I really like Buddhist mythology in Japan because it's crazy. It's got all this like weird extra additional stuff that's not anywhere else. So maybe you could go with one of those things too, like, but a lot of that stuff is already in Persona. So like I would say like, oh, I would use Bishamonten as mine, but he's in like every Persona game, I think. But yeah, you'd have to something like that. I don't know. I don't have a definite answer for you, not off the top of my head anyway. But all right, number 3. Are you into any other punk bands besides the Misfits? This is hard because I used to really be. I'm not like a punk guy so much as like I used to be really into kind of hardcore and noise in the 90s. From like 1991 or so, I started going to shows, and but there are punk bands that I like, but most of them are older. Like I like Minor Threat and stuff like that, Fear, Circle Jerks, I guess, that kind of stuff. I mean, but that's like your punk bands. I mean, there's a lot of stuff like from the 80s and early 90s that it's like hardcore bands that I really like Agnostic Front and the Cro-Mags, especially the Cro-Mags. Oh man, if you haven't heard the Cro-Mags, if you're just listening to this and you're just like, what are you talking about? What is Cro-Mags? Cro-Mags is this awesome band from the 80s that are like amazing, and you have to get the first you have to get the album Age of Quarrel. Anything that's not Age of Quarrel is probably not what you want to listen to for the Cro-Mags. Age of Quarrel, that's the one you want to listen to. Especially songs like, I guess, Malfunction is probably my favorite, but that's not like the best one to listen to. Trying to think, like, whatever, just listen to the Cro-Mags, they're awesome. And I like a bunch of, like, kind of youth crew bands, so like Youth of Today and Judge and Gorilla Biscuits and all of those kinds of early Revelation Records bands, Chain of Strength, I guess, stuff like that. I don't know. There's a bunch of bands that I really like. I used to kind of like Bad Brains a little bit, but not like, I don't like their reggae stuff all that much. And it's kind of like some of their early stuff like is pretty heavier or faster, I guess. Like Sailin' On is probably my favorite song. And bizarrely, there's a really good cover of that song by Moby. You should listen to that too, because it's like really slow and sad, but it's like you know, the original song is really fast, so it's kind of a bizarre cover, but it's so good. I'm trying to think of stuff that would be punk-ish. I like Shellac a whole lot. A bunch of like the Jesus Lizard, stuff like that, the touch and go bands, I guess and AMREP. I mean, I talked about this with Crack Lotus on his channel, but AMREP has a bunch of of their early bands I really liked. Stuff like later stuff that's punk-ish, like the Murder City Devils I really like. I don't know, there's so many bands, man, and I'm trying to think of stuff that's punkish though. I don't like skate punk, so I'm not like a fan of NoFX or pretty much any of those bands, like, you know, Offspring or stuff like, you know, it's that kind of like, what's it called? What is that record label that they're all on? I don't know. Fat Records and stuff. That kind of record labels, I don't like that stuff, but I'm into heavier, harder stuff, so Ebullition Records, stuff like that, Revelation Records, early Revelation Records, I guess I should say, Gerd Blanston Records, Vermiform Records, those kind of labels had some really awesome bands in the 90s. So, yeah, that kind of stuff, good bands. But okay, so number 4, I know you aren't into anime, but I know you have some knowledge, played some games based off them, such as a couple of games with Gundam characters, as well as knowing the popularity of One Piece in Japan. With that being said, what are some of your favorite games based off anime's manga? You know, I don't think I've played a ton of games based off of anime or manga. I have played those Gundam games, but are those based off of? I mean, I guess a Gundam is, but the characters that I care about, like I hate to use the Gundams in those games. I always use like Kamen Rider and Ultraman. So those are like tokusatsu, so it's not exactly the same. Beyond that, though, geez, man, I don't think I've played many anime-based games. I'm trying to look back here and see if I have any, but man, I played Afro Samurai. That's not really an anime, though, is it? Yeah, man. I really don't know. I don't have any. You know, the thing is I probably have played games based off of anime or manga, and I just don't know because I'm so out of touch with that stuff that I wouldn't be able to tell you. So sorry. So anyway, question 5: is the food in Japanese McDonald's way more healthy than America's, or is it full of the same disgusting crap people tend to know about? No, it's okay. It's probably worse, or at least as bad. I know that the food is pretty much the same. I mean, the standard beef patties and whatever, but you know, Japan still uses tallow to fry their food instead of vegetable oil. So, and you know, for example, like in the U.S. they don't fry in tallow anymore because there were like millions of vegetarians who were really pissed about that. So they stopped frying the fries in like beef tallow and instead started using vegetable oil. And in Japan they just still use beef tallow. So like you have you know, the fries are fried in that, and they still deep fry the apple pies and stuff. And they're not baked like they are in the U.S. anymore. It's still like the 1980s version of the McDonald's pie in Japan. So you can get that kind of crispy, oily pocket full of molten molten apples kind of apple pie that they used to sell in the early 80s in the US. Still, you can get it in Japan. It's superior to the US version, actually. But they have all these weird burgers and stuff. So, like, Japan have these, like, bizarre double-sized... It's like double-sized fries where it's like, you know, the super size in the US, it's bigger than that. It was like this ridiculous promotion they were doing. And then they have, like, recently they're doing these, like, kind of... They have all these kind of seasonal burgers, too. So, like, sometimes it'll be, like, a double cheeseburger with a fucking egg and, like, some sauce and shit on it. It's like... You know, I think they're doing some kind of, like, classic American burgers this time, but it's like it's always like a breaded fried chicken patty with bacon and onions or whatever. You know, I haven't actually eaten at McDonald's in a long time. I just kind of walk by there every once in a while and I notice the stuff. But I almost never eat fast food or even out at restaurants all that much. Mainly I cook everything I eat, essentially, because that's just kind of how I am. I always feel like if I can cook it at home and it's tasty, like, why should I pay for it at a restaurant? I should only go to a restaurant if it's like something I can't make myself or I don't know how to make. then I feel like justified going to a restaurant. Otherwise, I feel like, man, I could just make this at home and it'll probably be the same. But you know, that's kind of that's kind of how I feel about that kind of stuff. But let me see, Knickknack, do you have any more questions? No, that was the end of Knickknack's questions. So alright, thanks for the questions. And also check out Knickknack. I mean, I've given him a bunch of shoutouts, I think. So I really like him and his, ask him about his collection of girl games. So alright, that was actually the end of page 2, and we're only 40 minutes in. So I will actually continue on to page 3. Maybe we'll get this done faster than I imagined. But the next question is from Sprites and Bytes. And again, Sprites and Bytes, check out his channel too, because he just recently got about 500 subs. He's probably above that now, but you know, I actually did like a cameo in one of his maybe 300 subs video, and yeah, he's a good guy, and I like his channel, and you should check him out too. Sprites and Bytes. He asks, if you were to single out your favorite and worst SMT games, which would they be? You know, that's hard because, you know, I would probably go with my favorite, you know, as I said earlier, would probably be the first SMT game, only because I like the scenario the most. But the worst, it's hard to think of the worst. You know, it would be easy to say something like, oh, that card battle game is pretty awful, but it's not. It's actually pretty fun. And you know, I don't want to say something like Devil Children, because I mean, I don't really super enjoy that series, but it's not a bad series. It's just like too kid focused. If it were more adult focused and the demons looked like you know, not Pokemon, it would be pretty good. But you know, that's hard. I think the game I probably enjoyed the least will probably be the first Devil Summoner game, and I mean, not the first Devil Summoner, not the Sega Saturn one, but the one on the PlayStation 2. And it's not that that's a bad game. I like that game, but it's probably my least favorite of the Devil Summoner series, and the Devil Summoner series is like one of my less liked spin-off series in the SMT franchise, only because, well, I mean, the first one on the Saturn is like painful. It's not awful. It's a good game altogether, but like there's some things that make it so tedious at points. Like negotiations with demons is like ridiculously hard, and like it's so easy in Shin Megami Tensei. Like for example, recently in Shin Megami Tensei 4, it's so easy to do demon negotiation. It's like if you last more than 3 turns of demon negotiation, you're doing it wrong. Like you can get like pretty much 100% of the demons you negotiate with, as long as you get 2 positive reactions from them. Like get 2 positive reactions, and then if they ask you for anything else, just tell them to fuck off, and they join you automatically. It's like I think nobody noticed that. Like, you know, I saw people complaining about that, essentially, that you know, the demon negotiation takes too long, or you have to give them a million things and then they run away. Well, you're doing it wrong. If you get 2 positive reactions where they're happy with the answer, and then they ask for something else, you just cancel the negotiation, and they'll be like, okay, wait, I'm sorry, I'll join you. That happens every time. You can get like 95% of the demons that way. So it's ridiculously easy. But Devil Summoner, the first one, is actually like the way people were complaining. If you cancel the thing, they'll just leave and take all your stuff. But and the negotiations are ridiculously long, so it's just like painful. You have to go through this a million times too. So that made the first game pretty bad. And then, you know, you guys have played Soul Hackers. You know that it is like, Soul Hackers is like the dumbed down version of the first Devil Summoner game. It's a good game, but it is like super simplified comparatively. And I think like when it came out, it was kind of talked about in that way. Like people thought like, oh, they're dumbing down the series, and you know, now people play it and they think it's hard, but it is kind of a dumbed down version of the first game. It's more fun though, so I mean, I can't really fault it for that, because it actually is more fun than the first one, because the first one was so tedious. But I'm way off track, because the game I'm talking about is actually the PS2 one, and I don't like it as much as pretty much anything else because I don't like the battle system. I think it's like that kind of running around in an arena Tales of kind of thing that it doesn't work. Especially in the first one. It's better in the second one. It's not as bad. I kind of enjoy the second game in that on the PS2 ones a lot more than the first one. But the first one is clunky and you're like running around and like you can't tell a lot of times where things are going to happen. Like you'll shoot off spells and you'll think like it's going to go here and it goes in another place entirely. I had a lot of dislike for it. I just thought like it's not that great, and but anyway, what he's asking though is those two. But he asks a follow-up question. But if you were to take those two SMT games and mash them together, do you think the outcome would work? Okay, if you got rid of the live battle system, I mean, you took Raido and Kuzunoha and put him into a turn-based battle system like the first Megami Tensei game, the first Shin Megami Tensei game, yeah, it would work. It would be awesome. But if you put the first Shin Megami Tensei into the same battle system as the first Devil Summoner game on the PS2, well, it would probably suck. So it depends how you put them together, I guess. All right. So third question from Sprites and Bites. What interested you to move to Japan? And after living there for this length of time, do you have the passion to move still? Not really. Even like before I moved to Japan, I'm not like much of a person who wanted to move. Like I lived in the same town essentially for all the time I lived in until I moved to Japan. And I have moved once since I moved to Japan. So I used to live in Saitama, and now I live in kind of downtown Tokyo. And but I don't really like moving. It's kind of, I mean, there are some good points to moving. You get to learn about a new place, and you get to kind of get familiar with a different area. So I kind of like that feeling. And sometimes I feel like maybe I'll move to Osaka just because it would be fun. But then I think like, man, I'd have to find a job, and I have to do stuff over there. I'd have to pay all the ridiculous money to get a new apartment. Sounds like too much trouble. So there's very little that of like a true feeling like I want to move. But it would be nice to move to another part of Japan if I had the option. But like Osaka, I really would like to try to live there for a little while at least, but it's probably not going to happen. Unless, like, if I lost my job here, I would have nothing really, nothing would stop me from finding a job in Osaka, I guess. But, you know what they say, like, there's nothing worse, the only thing worse than having no job is looking for a job. So, currently I have a job, so I'm not gonna get out of that. Not anytime soon, anyway. So, alright, Sprites and Bites. Gareth, thanks for the questions. Next, we've got Blaylock47 asks, are there any horror RPGs that you can recommend? Horror RPGs is something there should be more of, and there are not a lot of them. But I don't know what kind of generations you're looking for, but you can't go wrong with something like Sweet Home. I'm trying to think of what else is there. I'm sure I have some stuff. I'm trying to think, what is there that's horror RPGs? I mean, besides Dark Souls and Demon Souls, I think everybody knows those. There's a game called Dark Half on the Super Famicom that's kind of like a RPG where you're playing the villain. That one's pretty good. That was actually recommended to me by Pete Dorr when he was here, and we were at the game shop, and he was like demanding that I buy it, and I was just he was like, "There's no translation for it. Someone's gonna play it and tell us about it." So I bought that, and I haven't played through the entire thing yet, so I haven't put anything up. But I have played a bit of it, and it is a lot of fun. So there is stuff like the Last Armageddon series on the PC Engine and on the Sega CD. There's Last Armageddon Gaiden, I think it's called. Those are horror RPGs. I'm trying to think, like, I guess Kingsfield and Law is on the PlayStation 1. And if you don't mind us kind of slow-paced game. It's a good kind of Dark Souls-esque kind of game. Although it's first person and it's ridiculously slow. Like when you swing a weapon, it's like really that slow. It's like it's so slow, and you know it takes like 10 seconds to turn around entirely. It's so slow, but it's a fun game though. So I mean, I guess it's probably not for everybody. But there's also the Shadow Tower game, Shadow Tower and Shadow Tower Abyss. Both of those are similar in that they're slow, kind of slow paced, but they're horror-ish. I'm trying to think of horror RPGs. There really aren't that many. Not that I can think of. If you guys know of any good horror RPGs, feel free to tell me what I'm forgetting, because I know I have more. I just can't think of them off the top of my head. Just looking around, it's kind of like, damn, man. There's not a lot. There's really not a lot of horror RPGs, I guess. If there are any I'm forgetting, I'll totally buy them. That game Hungry Ghost that I talked about isn't really an RPG, but it plays a lot like an action RPG does. Like you have to kind of level up and stuff, but it's not like an RPG system. It's more like a horror action game. But it's similar to the way something like Kingsfield 4 on the PlayStation 2 plays. Besides that, though, I don't really know. That's about it, I guess. But sorry, I wish I could have talked about more there. I just can't think of anything. Okay, so we're almost in an hour here. So thanks for the question, but I will answer one more set of questions, and then we'll end it, I guess, and go on to part 3 next time. So last questions here by PS Specialist, and he asks, what is your opinion on the Tenchu series, and which is your favorite? I honestly don't think I've ever played a Tenchu game. I don't particularly enjoy stealth games. I don't generally go out of my way to play them, and unless I've never played Tenchu, and I know it's made, I mean, some of them are made by From Software at least, but I'm wondering, are they essentially just ninja stealth games? Is there anything like horror related in it that would make me interested? Something awesome I think that's going to happen, or is it just like a really cool kind of stealth ninja game? Because that's my impression of it, and I think like, well, I don't really want to play a stealth ninja game or anything that's a stealth game essentially. So I don't know. I haven't really played any Tenchu games. Maybe I should. If you guys think so. I mean, if you really think like I should play a Tenchu game, tell me which one. I'll check it out, I guess. So second question. Will you do an impressions video on Danganronpa? Danganronpa, I probably will not do an impressions video. I'm not, obviously I'm not going to import it, but the Japanese version is actually on the Vita, is different from the one you guys have in that it's 1 and 2 in one disc. Like, the price you guys paid for 1 is like essentially what I'd pay for 1 and 2 together on the Vita. But I'm probably not going to review it, because by the time I get around to it, it's going to be like out of date, I think. Like, everybody will have already played 1 and probably 2. And like one of the lady friends was playing right now Steins Gate. We're playing it together, sort of. I mean, it's not really like there's not much play. It's just kind of a reading the story, I guess. But she was saying like that's the game she wanted to play next. So I'll probably eventually get it. If I finish both 1 and 2 before it comes out in the US and everybody has already talked about it, maybe I'll do an impressions video, but it won't be for months. So who knows? How long are those games, by the way? I haven't played either of them. 20 hours, maybe? If they're that long, I'm never going to finish it in time. But, yeah. That's about it. Thanks for the questions. We're at about 55 minutes here, so, yeah. Again, if you've got more questions, leave them below. This one I got through about a page and a half, so that's pretty good. Pretty good pace. It's better than the first video at least. So any more questions, leave them below. We actually added almost another page of questions from the last video. So it's like you've added another video to the Q&A list. So good on you guys. So all right, that's about it for today. I guess I'll try and do the next part tomorrow if I have time, but I might not. So and I've got impressions videos to do. I've got 2 games that I finished that I haven't talked about yet, and that's this one, Eirasha Deiko, and Yakuza Ishin. I finished both of those, but I haven't actually, made the impressions videos. But I got to do those and finish this Q&A, so it's gonna be. I've got a lot of videos to do, but little time to do them. But anyway, more questions if you got them below. Any comments, I'll comment back. But yeah, see you guys next Q&A video. See ya.